What's up, Wall fans, common sensors, and of course, podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for episode 100 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. We got a lot to get into today. I don't want to set expectations too high for this being episode 100, but we'll recognize it a little bit. Fact is, we're at like 280-something total episodes. It's just since we have two different formats, and we've numbered things differently, like holiday specials and stuff. It's kind of all over the place, but I will recognize that it's episode 100, and we'll recognize that a little bit, but hopefully in the next couple months we'll be able to have like a bi-centibration for those of you that have been listening a long time, or a tri-centibration at this point, thanks to COVID. So with all that being said, let's get right into episode 100. All right, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, welcome to another very exciting edition of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and this is episode 100 of Common Sense Sundays. I'll recognize that a couple times throughout the episode, but the fact is, and I said at the top of the video feed, so apologies for those of you that are actually watching the video feed and not just doing the audio portion. For those of you that don't know, there's a little extra like 30 seconds on the front of every video feed if you're somebody that only listens to the audio. But we'll recognize that a couple times throughout the episode. But as I said before, and I think I pointed out a couple times, we're at like episode 280 something total. It just happens to be episode 100 of the Common Sense Sundays format that started in 2020, courtesy of COVID and having to shift schedules around. All right, now, before we get into the meat of the episode, the digital trends, all that good stuff, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's our official Facebook page. You're going to get all kinds of updates, new episode posts, new video posts, all that kind of great stuff right there on Facebook. So if you're a Facebook user, make sure you're following our page. And then, of course, we have youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall, our official YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Check out all of our video content over there. Not quite all of it gets posted to Facebook, so you might find some stuff there that just pops up on YouTube. But if you enjoy watching the video feeds, that is one of your better places to do it, there or Facebook. And, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean. Not all Go Tell It to the Wall content, in fact. Most of it is being populated by show photos, concert photos, all that kind of good stuff, whatever you like to call it. And there's so much in the queue that you're going to get a ton of that coming up. So please, if you're an Instagram user, follow my own personal Instagram account at SoCalSean. And more importantly than all those things, make sure you bookmark SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's going to give you links to all the social platforms, as well as other exclusive content that you don't find on any of the social platforms, only gets posted to the website, as well as our Patreon campaign. You should all familiarize yourselves with Patreon. Even if you don't want to use it, just kind of know what it's about. And if you don't want to support us financially, there's probably somebody else out there whose content you enjoy, whose music you enjoy, whose art you enjoy that maybe you want to support on Patreon. There's so many users on there. I know a ton of musicians that have content up there, so make sure you're checking that out either way. And if you want to support us, but you don't want to get involved with Patreon, you can pick up some Common Sense merch through our merch website, which links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. All right, now that that's opening done, that's opening done? Now that the opening's done, let's get into episode 100 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. Some digital trends. Oh, man. It's been it's always a wild time on the social platforms, particularly this week, and I would like to call it the week in hypocrisy. We talk about this quite a bit pertaining to digital platforms and common sense topics, and one of the biggest ones this week would be the official GOP Twitter. Yeah, I don't know who the hell runs this thing. It's chock full of hypocrisy. I encourage you not to follow it. Don't give them numbers, but that's the thing. It's like with the Elon Musk stuff that I mentioned. You don't have to follow him and give him numbers. Somebody else is going to screenshot his stuff, and you'll be able to laugh at his idiocracy. And that's kind of what happens with the GOP whenever they put out something that is just so hypocritical and amazingly just absent-minded that it gets retweeted, or you get a screenshot of it, and you don't actually have to follow the GOP Twitter. And this one in particular, they said they posted, and I quote, Government should be as small as possible, meaning that government should not have its hands in everything. This is from the GOP Twitter. The Republicans, whoever the hell's running this thing, doesn't understand what Republicans have been doing for the past few years in this country. Wildly hilarious, but also scary, because here's the thing: is people eat this up. The good thing is you had some people out there pointing out, oh, so government should stay out of things unless it happens to be same-sex marriage rights, women's body rights as far as it pertains to themselves and their own choices, LGBTQ rights. So government should be small unless it's something that annoys conservatives out there. And the hypocrisy behind this just is dripping. And while it is kind of hilarious, I know a lot of people were pointing this out and laughing, the scary thing is that there are supporters out there who eat this up, and they're like, yes, small government, and not even realizing that sometimes their rights are being taken away. There are female Republicans out there not realizing that their rights to their own bodies are being taken away. Now, a lot of times, they kind of brush it to the side because they're wealthy, and wealthy people tend to get around things like this, but we can't let this kind of stuff go unchecked. We need to point out this hypocrisy. Small government, my ass. They are trying to govern everything. We have a Supreme Court who has a religious agenda taking away the rights of certain people in this country, and that's unacceptable. And the fact that the GOP is so just ignorant to this, what they're doing, and I don't even think it's they're ignorant. It's just they're riling up a part of their own base is what they're doing, while being hypocritical, but knowing that the people that support them are not going to see it that way. They're going to be like, yes, small government, but yes, fuck everyone who's different from us. It's astounding to me that anybody can support Republicans these days. This podcast was launched as not a political podcast. We don't talk about policy, anything like that. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I am a registered independent. I am not a Democrat. However, this podcast is also about common sense, and we are going to point those things out regardless of what side they're on. There was years ago I had to defend Ivanka Trump, not because of her beliefs or anything, but because of the way her kids were being treated unnecessarily. So we're going to continue to do that, and this is just another example of that, and happens to fall into digital trends. Fortunately, like I said, people were jumping all over it, but the scary part is their base, who's going to eat it up and think, yes, this is the way. Oh, God, this is the way. We're going to talk a little bit about Mandalorian when we get to entertainment news, so gird your loins for that. More hypocrisy this week, is I'm seeing a lot of these global warming posts. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, we had some crazy weather here. I mean, all around the country had some crazy weather, but we had unexpected crazy weather here in Southern California. Snow falling in places that snow does not usually fall. Well, I was seeing posts from people that they would post photos of like the mountains with snow on them and palm trees in the background or something like that, or any story about snowfall in Southern California where it's not usually supposed to snow, and they were like, oh, so how's that global warming going? Saw a ton of these posts this week. Here's the thing. Whoever did it first in the 80s really kind of screwed up by calling it global warming. Because the fact is, it's not global warming. That was a term that we use. The correct term is climate change. I'm going to say that again. The correct term, Wall fans, climate change. So the fact that you're posting a photo of snow on mountains or in areas around Southern California that never used to get snow, you're actually exemplifying the fact that climate change is real. But yes, keep your ignorant tweets and posts and everything else out there thinking that it's all about warming things, when in fact it is climate change. This is not fucking normal for Southern California. It's amazing to me, the hypocrisy and the stupidity of people. Speaking of hypocrisy and stupidity of people, Tom Sizemore, the actor, unfortunately passed away this week. And he had I believe a stroke and a brain aneurysm. I don't know the exact details, but he was in a coma and for a few days, and it came out. His family said there's no hope for resuscitating him, so he unfortunately passed away just a couple days ago. So first of all, rest in peace, Tom Sizemore. I know many people loved him as an actor. He was a very accomplished actor for the most part. But as soon as he went into this coma and had this aneurysm, of course, who was jumping on it? Who was jumping on it, Wall fans? The COVID deniers. The anti-vaxxers. They were jumping on it, and they said, whoa, was he vaccinated? Well, clearly he had a stroke and aneurysm because he was vaccinated. Now, again, some people were pointing this out, but it's not going to matter to those people that are spreading misinformation. I'm going to guess it is the years and years and years of rampant drug use, which is pretty well documented, that may have led to health issues for Tom Sizemore. Let's just think about that for a minute. But of course, we're going to have people, the same people like suddenly died. They're posting all these things about heart attacks and strokes and everything else as if those things didn't exist before the COVID vaccines. Don't fall into those traps. Tom Sizemore did not pass away because of the COVID vaccine. I would bet my entire career on that. It's not possible. We're not looking at it like that. But people are going to post about it. So don't let them gaslight you on that either. And the other one that's been driving me nuts, there's a lot of doom and gloom and fire and wrath here in my digital trends. But one more I want to point out to everyone. This seems to be a trend, and I've seen it from, I don't really pay attention to the exact people that are posting it, but it gets retweeted, reposted and everything. And I've seen multiple different accounts that are doing this. They're going into Target specifically, into the boys' clothing section, and pointing out that Target is trying to indoctrinate boys and make them part of the LGBTQ community. And why would this be? Because apparently if you go to the boys section at Target stores, you're going to find brightly colored shirts and shorts, and maybe a pink t-shirt, maybe a t-shirt with a rainbow on it. We're not talking about the rainbow flag. We're simply talking about a rainbow. And people are losing their minds. They're walking through Target saying, how can Target try to indoctrinate our children? First of all, it's fucking clothes, okay? It's fucking clothes. And this is how I can kind of tell we have reverted as a society. Many people have moved forward, but a lot of people in our society, especially in the United States of America, have reverted. I would like to point out a time in the 90s when literally everybody was wearing bright colors and neon clothes. I had a lot of brightly colored shorts when I was a kid in the 90s. That was just part of the style. It had nothing. We weren't pointing out, he's going to turn gay because he's wearing some brightly colored shorts and a t-shirt with a rainbow on it. No. And in fact, just to piggyback off of that, I saw somebody posted something about, if you remember the movie from the 90s, Tu Wong Fu, With Love, Julie Newmar, something. The title of the movie isn't important. But it featured Patrick Swayze, Wesley Snipes, and I'm blanking on his name, well-known, is it John Leguizamo, I believe. They dressed in drag for the whole movie. And nobody was in an uproar about this. It wasn't even a big thing. It was just entertainment. Much the way that drag shows are what? Entertainment. Well, this was about 27 years ago, I think. And don't quote me on that exact year. Nobody freaked out. Now, if you put something out like that, everyone would freak out and they say, you're trying to change our kids. Give me a fucking break. How have we reverted so badly that people are going to Target and getting mad about the color of clothing in the boys section? Most importantly about this, for anyone out there freaking out about it, you're probably not listening to this podcast anyway, but if somebody else is freaking out about it around you and you want to point it out to them, simply point out, you don't have to buy the goddamn boys' clothes that are brightly colored. Nobody says you have to buy them. Buy your kids whatever you want, whatever they want. You don't have to buy the brightly colored clothes. Why are we freaking out? Because there are options for brightly colored clothes in a boys section at Target. There's no reason to. Actually, I have more digital trends. Sometimes I forget and I get all over the place. But that's enough with the Target videos. Grow up. That's the thing. Just grow up. Use some common sense here. All right. NFL players. These always crack me up. This is what's been trending on, specifically on Twitter, but really all the social platforms. And I'm not even going to get into names, but there's two NFL players that played against each other in the Super Bowl. They have been, I guess what the kids call beefing, right? Is that correct? Some young listener will point out that I'm totally wrong on that. They have been beefing, finger quotes, on Twitter and tweeting at each other and sending private messages, like talking shit about each other and about the Super Bowl game and everything else, and then posting screenshots of their private messages and really just getting into it on Twitter and social platforms. This always cracks me up because I see this stuff and I sit there and I go, you're a fucking millionaire. You are a fucking millionaire playing a goddamned game. Why? What is the importance of getting into it with other people on Twitter? Grow up. Get over it. It's a damn game. But that's what we have here. Millionaires fighting over a game. Really? Really? Now you want to debate sports like as a fan, or like, who's the greatest basketball player? That's fun. We're not going to argue about and insult each other when you're millionaires getting paid to play a damn game. Grow up. Speaking of millionaires getting paid to play a damn game, we've talked about this guy before. Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a twofold, and I put it in, it was going to be a common sense thing, but I put it in digital trends because it just escalated. We got a story like a week, within the past 2 weeks. We didn't record last week. I think I've had this in my notes for a little while. So maybe it was in the past 2 weeks. Where Ja Morant, we've talked about him and just the things that he's been doing and his little crew of people have been doing as far as threatening and everything else. And you can go back and listen to the previous episodes if you don't remember that. But what happened was we then got a story where Ja Morant apparently beat up a 17-year-old boy and then brandished a gun. Now, don't quote me on this because I believe he didn't actually point it at him, but you see this in movies. And sometimes it's fucking real. He comes out with a gun in his waistband and flashing it from his waistband. You're a goddamned millionaire, professional basketball player, threatening a 17-year-old boy. Well, it got even worse. Because just a couple days ago, Ja Morant decided to get on Instagram Live from a strip club. Now, first of all, I don't understand. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a strip club. I was never a big strip club goer, but I've gone. I've had friends that like to go, and then bachelor parties. I've been to many bachelor parties, and that's kind of like the thing. I remember when I got married, and I was like, yeah, we'll probably go to a strip club, and my wife was like, yeah, that's like what you do, right? It's the expectation of, and nothing creepy about it, but if you've ever been, you're not supposed to be on a phone. This guy's not only on a phone, he's on Instagram Live. He's not showing strippers, but apparently he lost his shirt somewhere in the strip club. And here's where it gets ridiculous. He decides to flash a gun next to his face, not pointed at his head or anything, but a gun while he's in the strip club. This is after all of the flack he's been taking, the trouble he's been in, everything else, and he decides it's time to flash a gun. Once again, you are a millionaire. You are paid to play a game. Don't try to be all dangerous and stuff when there's no reason to. And in fact, I saw this Paul Pierce, who was a former NBA player, and he actually came out and defended him. And I said, no. Because years ago, he did get stabbed. And he said, well, I started carrying a gun after I got stabbed. And it's like, you know what? You want to legally carry a handgun? That is your prerogative. Here's the difference. You got stabbed. Ja Morant has not been stabbed, threatened, beat up, anything like that. He could, but apparently he's destroying it, could lead a very posh life as a professional basketball player, making lots of money. But instead, he chooses this path. And here's the other thing that I saw people pointing out to Paul Pierce. It's like, no. If you're actually being threatened, here's what you do. If you have millions and millions of dollars, you can hire a bodyguard. And even if you are going to carry a gun yourself for protection, you're not going to go on Instagram Live and start flashing it around. This is simply common sense. He's a sinking ship. If I knew Ja Morant, if he was a good friend of mine, I would probably try to talk him out of being such an idiot lately. If he was an acquaintance of mine, I would have nothing to do with him anymore. I just would completely avoid him. All right. That's it for digital trends. Let's get into a little bit of mental health. I don't have anything crazy this week, but I want to point out a couple things here. John Fetterman. I'm sorry, I stumbled over that. It's not even a hard to pronounce name. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania who beat out Dr. Oz, that quack of a doctor. I don't even know how the hell he's a doctor. For the Senate seat there in Pennsylvania, recently checked himself into treatment for depression. And the reason I bring this up is I often talk about how far we have come in the entire world, especially as a country, removing the stigma that is mental health, mental illness, and the stigma surrounding that. And this is another example of that. John Fetterman has been completely open. He admitted to it. He probably could have done this privately, without the public really knowing full details of it, but he has been open about it. And he has still been doing his job from where he is getting treatment for depression. I cannot stress enough how much I admire him for being honest in this situation. And of course, people are getting on him and saying, how can he be a senator? How can he be a senator and have depression? Like, okay, first of all, if we want to start talking to every single politician in this country to see who has any kind of issue with mental health, John Fetterman's not going to be the only one. And if you're somebody that's going to sit there and say, well, somebody cannot be a politician or cannot do such and such because they have a mental health issue, I have a hearty fuck you heading directly at you. Because you're saying that much of the population of the world is not qualified to do certain things. He is simply getting treatment. I admire his honesty. And like I've always said, hopefully somebody young out there is going to see that and they're going to go, hey, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay. So good on you, John Fetterman. I'm wishing the best for him, sending all the good thoughts his way. I know it's something he can beat and get back there to Washington. But like I said, still doing his job from where he's getting treatment, which is more than I can say for some people on a certain side of the aisle that just like to run around flashing guns and talking shit on Twitter and all these other things. So again, everyone needs to grow up a little bit. I'm supposed to be running a country. And then one more thing I want to talk about. It's slightly mental health, but and my wife says this to me. She's like, you take the weight of the world on your shoulders sometimes. And I do, and this isn't a holier than thou thing. I think many of us out there do that. Many people out there do that have empathy. And an example of this is this weekend that CPAC convention was going on. I think they had it in D.C. I can't even remember if that thing moves, but it's that Christian blah, blah, the bullshit convention they do, where they parade a bunch of idiots up there who spew ignorance out of their mouth and then call it a day. Well, we had somebody up there who wants to end transgenderism. And then he quickly caught flack. I'm not even going to give his name here. You're welcome to look it up. He caught flack because he said, well, people were like, you want transgender people to die. And he said, no. I just want to end transgenderism. This is basically like saying we need to end Judaism, and someone says, so you want all of the Jews to disappear? And they say, no, I want to end Judaism. That is the same fucking thing. I'm sorry, there's no way to sugarcoat this. He got all mad at Rolling Stone for posting a headline, and I'm not going to sit here and defend Rolling Stone, the magazine that put a terrorist on its cover thinking it was a good idea years ago, but call it what it is. This is what you said. It's quoted. It's on video. We're not going to get into semantics of wording. That is simply what you were calling for, and there's no excuse for it. We don't have any room for this hateful talk, and the reason I bring this up in mental health is think about any of your friends that are in the LGBTQ community. Think about how they're feeling when they see that they are being attacked. In fact, there are bills in certain states right now, and fortunately, same-sex marriage is codified. So I, from my understanding, nobody quote me on this, states can't actually make it illegal for same-sex marriage within their state. Because it is codified. But we have states that are trying to do this. We have states that are banning drag shows. We have states that are completely banning anything LGBTQ. I'm looking at you, Florida. Think about that community. Think about that. How would you feel if someone was literally trying to end everything that is what you are? So keep this in mind. We need to be louder than the hateful bigots out there. We need to be quick to defend communities that have done no harm whatsoever to the rest of the world or the rest of the country. We can do better. So while it may not necessarily be your own mental health, think of the mental health of others within a community that has been completely marginalized for the past 6 years. I know, not for just the past 6 years, but it's ramped up so much. What'd I say? We had 3 fairly masculine actors dressed in drag in the late 90s, and everyone thought it was a funny movie. Think about that. So we must be louder. No one should feel alone, and that's the most important thing. So please keep that in mind, Wall fans. And now we move on to some positive news, and this is something that gives me hope. So we had an 8-year-old in Arkansas. His name is Kayzen Hunter. Apologies if I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's Kayzen. Apologies to you. I didn't look up a pronunciation. I was simply reading articles about it. He likes to frequent a Waffle House there in Arkansas. And he has a favorite server that works at the Waffle House he goes to named Devontae Gardner. Well, he found out that Devontae Gardner was living in a motel. So 8 years old, what did he do? He went out and raised over $66,000 to help his favorite server at a Waffle House move out of a hotel and into a I don't know if it was a house or but gave him money to not have to live in a hotel anymore, probably an apartment. I think he was just living by himself. So, but having an actual place to live as opposed to just a hotel. 8 years old. So good on you, Kayzen Hunter. And stuff like this gives me hope for the future. This child is being raised correctly. Now, should we live in a society where we don't have to raise money for someone who's working their ass off to not have to live in a hotel? Of course. However, this does give me hope, like I said, that the youth is going to move us forward, because certainly the generation ahead of me, for the most part, is not moving us forward. So good on you, Kazin. Want to see more and more of this, helping people that are in need, because that's the most important thing. Help your fellow man. I know, man or woman. Help your fellow person. That's what we're here for. Lift each other up. 8 years old. All right. Speaking of 8-year-olds. Oh, no, mine's not 8. Let's get into some parenting. So some of this is, I'm gonna be fire and brimstone for a little bit of this because I've been getting real tired of things. But before I get to that, I did talk about the crazy weather we've had here in Southern California. So I want to fill you in on something. I said I had a scheduling conflict for last weekend. We had actually planned, our family along with 3 other families, had been planning for about a month and a half. Had a place rented to go up to an area called Lake Arrowhead here in Southern California, which is in the mountains, and it does usually get snow. The funny thing is, we wanted to do it earlier in February and just nothing was available, and it ended up, okay, last weekend of February. And all of us parents were like, oh my gosh, and so this, I'm not taking blame for what happened here in Southern California, and I don't mean to laugh because people are stuck in the snow in the mountains right now, but we were hoping, the reason I laugh is we were hoping that there'd still be snow, because we're like, man, it's late February, it's hit or miss if there's going to be snow. Well, then last week happened, and we were watching it all week and going, oh man, oh man, oh man. And the day before we were supposed to leave, we said, you know what, and they were saying the road, do not try to get on the roads, everything else, and we said, okay, we're going to have to cancel this trip. So while we wanted to make sure there was some snow, we didn't want a blizzard, and unfortunately, and I can't speak for the other families, but I had to break it to my wife, and I had to break it to our daughter on Thursday, because we were supposed to leave Friday, and oh man. And I don't blame her. I felt horrible. In fact, at one point, I waited for my wife to get home because I knew it. And I was like, I'm not going to be the only one to tell her. And I even had to remove myself from the room because she was just absolutely heartbroken. She's 6. She doesn't get to see snow a lot. And she was so looking forward to this trip. The thing is, we made the right choice because we'd still be stuck there. We would still be stuck there, probably with minimal food. And multiple kids running around with literal not fever, like, sickness fever, but literal cabin fever, where they just don't know what to do. They're stuck inside and running, would have been a lot of TV time probably at that point. And who knows if we would have even had power. But I felt truly terrible for my 6-year-old. And I know many parents out there have been in this situation. And it was utterly heartbreaking to me. And there's always kids get disappointed, but this was something she was looking forward to for a month and a half, and she was literally counting down the days on a calendar, and then completely upended. So I'm hoping that we can get her out to the snow before it's gone, but at this point, we're now into March, and there's still going to be snow. That's the good thing. Is I do, on another note, I feel for everyone that's stuck in the mountains right now, but the one good thing of it is once they dig out more of this, people that live in the ski resort towns and the snowboard, where the mountains are, that make their money off of skiers and snowboarders and everything else, rentals, lift tickets, all that kind of stuff, that community is going to have an extended ski and snowboard season, which is great for them financially, because here in Southern California, we've had a few years with drought and everything else, that the ski and snowboard seasons just were not long, and people that rely on that for their well-being and their business were struggling for a few years now. So the one good thing is, as long as everyone's safe, once they can dig them out here in the mountains, because people literally can't get out of the mountains right now, then that will be helpful to people that make a living off of that tourism and people going to do that. All right, I've talked about this before. Ads during things like sporting events. For the love of God, can we please stop with the cocaine bear ads? I understand if people want to see it. It looks funny. Honestly, I kind of want to see it. I'm not going to the theater to see something called Cocaine Bear, but I'd watch it if I had it on TV and stuff. Thing is, I'm not having my 6-year-old watch it. It's gotten to the point where I have to vigilantly watch the TV. And it's one thing if I'm watching, like, primetime television, after 8 p.m., and it's clearly not geared toward kids. And I'm willing to admit that sporting events are not necessarily geared toward kids, but they should be family-friendly events. My kid loves to watch hockey. She really likes basketball. She enjoys watching these things. We sit and watch them, but I have to be so vigilant, so if one of these commercials comes on, I change the channel right away, or I turn it off completely. And it's gotten to the point, we like to listen to ESPN radio. I just kind of throw it on in the background when we're doing stuff at home. Because we don't watch a ton of TV in this house, unless we're watching a game or my kid gets like an hour of television, or we'll have a movie night, because I like to focus on doing creative things. But we'll have it on in the background because I enjoy talk radio. We often have music on, but during the day, I just kind of enjoy talk radio. Well, ESPN radio has gotten to the point where last week they did an entire segment on cocaine-related things because of Cocaine Bear. And on top of that, and I was like, I got to turn this off. Immediately turn it. And my daughter's like, why are you turning it off? She's so used to, she's like, oh, ESPN radio. And she's like, why? And I was like, no, we just can't listen to this anymore. And I even went and tweeted, because there's these little communities on Twitter. This is one of the few things I use Twitter for, is ESPN radio here in Los Angeles has a couple of these little communities, which I guess is a Twitter thing. Somehow I ended up in it. And I didn't even do it in a mean way. I was like, oh my gosh, I just had to turn that off. That is a lot of cocaine talk for a sports radio station. My 6-year-old can't be hearing this. And some jamoke got on there and said, well, I think they'll be all right. To which I responded and said, yeah, I don't know if you've ever been around a 6-year-old, but they tend to repeat lots of things that they hear, especially if they're hearing it over and over and over again. So I'd rather not get a call from my 6-year-old's kindergarten teacher saying that she's been repeating the word cocaine in class all day. And I said, but thanks for the advice. And this person said, well, I wasn't giving you advice. So I was like, so thanks for the uninformed opinion? I don't. And I wasn't even being that mean. I was just pointing it out. Like, hey, guys, do we need to have a whole segment about cocaine? And then it got worse because the next day, I was like, all right, let's try it out again. I turn it on, and they're talking about microdosing shrooms. And again, I have no problem with this stuff, but I can't have my kid going to school and being like, microdosing shrooms. That's crazy. And yes, I'm talking about it here, but my podcast is literally not geared toward kids. It's not on AM radio. It's not a sporting podcast. This is not kid friendly. It absolutely has these labels on it everywhere. So give me a break with that. We just need to knock it off. Young kids repeat everything. The Twitter idiot. Well, they'll be fine. No, I'm not worried about her being scarred for life. I just don't want these calls from the school. Let's just do better about that. All right, one more thing I want to talk about. And this one really pertains to, especially if you have older children than mine. I've talked about my kids trying out basketball and tennis, and she loves dance class and everything else. And these are things that keep her busy. But we've gotten some studies coming out recently about AAU basketball. And for those of you that are not familiar with this, AAU basketball is an organization within the U.S., and it hasn't even been around since the beginning of basketball. It was around when I was playing high school basketball, and it's essentially club teams that travel around and play basketball in addition to your high school team. And so what they have found with these studies is some kids are playing 4 to 5 basketball games a week, which may not seem like a lot, but when you're at the high school level, even just before the high school level, these are pretty intense games. And they're now linking that back to more injuries once they hit the professional or college level. And in addition to that, burnout from kids just playing sports too much. And I can speak to that because I played basketball nonstop for 2.5 years. I didn't start playing basketball until 8th grade. I played basketball for about 2.5 years through my sophomore year of high school, and I burned out on it because it was constant. And it was nowhere near 4 to 5 games a week. But I played high school basketball, summer basketball, and club basketball throughout the year. 2.5 years, and I said, that's enough. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, this is not fun for me anymore. So I bring this up, and especially if you are a parent of a child who plays sports and is a little older and getting into, being in part of elite, high school programs and whatever else, be aware of this. Read up on these studies. Talk with your children. And I'm not saying that it's bad to play so many things. I mean, look at Olympic athletes. They're starting early, figure skating, and I get it, but there's definitely a balance. And we have these studies coming out now that are pointing out the negative sides of it. So just be cautious with your kids. Doesn't mean don't do it. Just talk to your kids, be cautious, because sometimes it's not necessarily worth it. A small fraction, the smallest fraction of high school athletes go on to play professional sports. And then even the smallest fraction of college athletes go on to play professional sports. Okay, think about how many college basketball programs there are in the United States of America. Thousands. There are 32 professional teams in the United States of America. So think about how that translates once you do hit the professional level. So keep your kids' well-being in mind, even if they are an elite athlete. All right, let's get into some common sense here. This one just pisses me off. And we've talked for years about defending journalists and the right to report on things and be honest and open. And we always hear this free speech stuff, which is crazy because it's, what about free speech and everything? It's like, no, you have free speech. Just because a platform doesn't want to carry your podcast or, a platform doesn't want to let you post hateful things on it, doesn't mean you don't have free speech. You're welcome to go stand on a soapbox on the corner. You have the right to do that. If you come into my house and start talking like that, I can kick your ass out. It's the same thing with certain platforms. Okay? They're very different things. But it's funny because the same side lets things like this go across. So there is a bill, but it hasn't passed. There's a bill that they're trying to pass in Florida, of course. Jesus Christ, Florida. And it's basically anyone who, and it's targeted toward bloggers. Anyone who writes about Ron DeSantis down there in Florida. This bill would require them to register with the state in order to blog anything regarding Ron DeSantis. And if they don't register, they could be fined and or jailed because of it. You've got to love the side of the aisle that constantly comes out and says, well, that's fascism. Socialism is fascism and blah, 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 blah. Hello? This right here, that bill, if you look up fascism in the dictionary, they'd have a picture of this bill. You're trying to control the media, control the narrative. And why? Because he's worried people are going to say bad things about him. Well, guess what, asshole Ron DeSantis? I live in California, and I'm going to continue to point out how big of an asshole you are and how hateful you are and how big of a hypocrite you are. So fuck you, fuck your state, and everything that's going on there. And I don't mean fuck everyone in your state. I just mean fuck the way things are running in your state. Marginalizing the LGBTQ community, doing stuff like this. That's fascism. I just bang my head against the wall when I read these things. It's absolutely amazing. All right, LSU gymnasts. We've talked about it before in the whole uproar, and they had to have people like kicked out of a gymnastics meet or whatever. Olivia Dunn. She apparently posted a video recently, and she is a gymnast. She actually makes a lot of money because she has a couple of these name and image likeness deals that a lot of college athletes have nowadays. So they're able to make a lot of money, and she's very popular, so I'm sure she makes a good amount of money doing it. She did a video in which she pointed out that she was using, and I believe it was like the ChatGPT one, using AI to write her college essays. Now, this is something you shouldn't do to begin with, but I'll be honest, if you're going to do it, maybe don't make a video talking about how you do it. So now there's a whole big uproar over this, as there should be. And LSU's going to have to deal with this. They are a sometimes words escape me, reputable university. And if they let this go, then everyone's going to think they can just, she's going to use AI to write all my essays. And then, honestly, nobody should get a degree at that point because you're just having a computer write all your shit. But this is only going to get worse. That's the thing, too. We have not seen the end of AI. And it did get me thinking recently, because there are certain advantages. You see, when I was a kid, I border it. I'm of the age where internet was kind of available by the time I was a teenager. It wasn't the internet that is today, where you just Google something, but you had internet. But I was also of the age where you had to go to the library if you're researching something, and you remember encyclopedias? Yeah, now they're online. You used to have to get the book. So I do understand to an extent, but there is a huge difference between, oh, I don't have to go to the library and read through this. I can utilize resources on the internet, and actually having artificial intelligence write your paper. Huge difference. It did get me thinking about it, though, and I was like, no, wait. I was like, wait, maybe. No. No. It is easier now because we can just Google things, but you still got to fact check, and if you can't just, you would get in trouble for Googling an entire written paper. You would get kicked out of school for plagiarism, for the love of God. And here we have AI writing essays for college students. Oh, man. All right, Jackson Mahomes. If you have never heard of this guy, I am jealous because he is just one of the worst human beings I've ever seen in my life. He's very obnoxious. He is the brother of Super Bowl winning quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Jackson Mahomes. And now, for the most part, a lot of stuff he's done is just obnoxious, and he's like dancing on a field and getting in the middle of photos, and it's like, yo, your brother won the game. You didn't win the game. Congratulate him and get the fuck out. And he's just inserting himself in there. And somehow, I guess he's kind of famous probably on TikTok or one of those stupid things. Well, we've gotten word, and there's actually video of it. So I will say allegedly, but there's video of it. And if you're going to watch the video, just be prepared because it is blatant of him sexually assaulting the owner of a restaurant where he was dining. You can see in the video. He grabs this poor young woman, grabs her like by the neck and kisses her. Comes back and does it another 2 times. 2 times. Absolutely astounding to me that anyone could think this is right, first of all. But the other thing I got to, and granted, like I said, his brother plays in the NFL. He does not, but he's around the NFL all the time. This is somewhat of a problem that the NFL has contributed to. And why? What have we talked about over the past couple of years here and there? Deshaun Watson sexually assaulting 20-plus women. And the NFL let him be one of the highest paid player, guaranteed money-wise, in the National Football League. I think the NFL is just digging themselves deeper and deeper and deeper, and they need to do something about it at this point, even despite the fact that Jackson Mahomes is not actually employed in the NFL, but his brother is. Jackson Mahomes probably wouldn't be famous if his brother wasn't a extremely accomplished NFL quarterback. So don't get that twisted at all. NFL is just adding to this garbage. And they need to clean up their act. Otherwise, they're just going to keep digging themselves deeper and deeper and deeper. And the fact that a lot of people say they're too big to fail, it will hit a point. It will hit a point. Oh, speaking of idiots. So apparently, there's a little bit of a swell of support for Robert Kennedy Jr. To run against Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket in the 2024 presidential election. You cannot make this shit up. This is anti-vaxxer Robert Kennedy Jr., who is essentially, and rightly so, named the king of misinformation. He has had to apologize on multiple occasions for spreading misinformation, on top of the fact that he doesn't believe in any kind of vaccines. And we're not talking just he's anti-COVID vaccine. No vaccines. He thinks they're terrible. So we cannot let this go unchecked. I know we had the Orange Menace for 4 years, but we need to move past that and do better. Robert Kennedy Jr. is definitely not the answer to that. Now, this one I would encourage you to go check out because it is absolutely brilliant. Jon Stewart recently did an interview with a guy named Nathan Dahm. He is a state senator in Oklahoma. He skewered this son of a bitch, Nathan Dahm. It was utterly amazing. And if even if you don't know anything about Jon Stewart, it's amazing the way that he is able to point out the hypocrisy to this guy right in front of his face. And I won't get into all the details of you. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to look it up. You can easily find this particular clip, but he essentially was able to point out, and the guy had no answer for it, the state senator, point out how he's not concerned about gun laws and deaths of children because of gun use in his state and in the entire country, but he is worried about banning drag shows within Oklahoma for the safety of children. To which Jon Stewart pointed out, no child has died because of a drag show. However, the number one cause of death in this country for children, not cancer, not car accidents, not drug overdoses, it is guns. That is factual. This isn't even debatable. It's a fact. Numbers don't lie. So please check this out. Jon Stewart, I swear to God, if Jon Stewart ran for president, he would have 1,000% of my support, because I think he is a beacon of common sense in this world where everyone just runs around with rampant hypocrisy. And he simply used facts to verbally beat the shit out of this guy. And it is truly, truly beautiful. All right, we're probably going to wrap up a little bit early today. I actually have some family guests over. I got to finish up here and go get some dinner going and all that good stuff. So we do have some entertainment news before we finish up episode 100 of Common Sense Sundays. This one's actually kind of viral on the social platforms as well, but I wanted to talk about it from an entertainment standpoint because it is entertainment. Chris Rock apparently had a Netflix special that dropped on Netflix last night, and oh boy. And people are quite divided on this, but from the little clips I've seen, it's amazing to me. It looks like it's a train wreck to me, but a lot of people were like, good on Chris Rock. And here's the thing. We all remember the Oscars slap from last year. Talked about it. We are now looking at a comedian who was somewhat irrelevant, who is now just holding on for dear life to this one little event that happened. I am not here to defend Will Smith by any means. But it sounded like about half of his comedy special was talking about Will Smith, talking shit about Will Smith, all this other stuff. And in fact, I did see from people saying, well, if anyone's trying to I've never seen anyone try to get slapped again as much as Chris Rock has. And some other people, because again, I've only seen a couple clips. And even a little bit I saw, I was like, I kind of see why he got slapped. But people were pointing that out. They're like, oh, no, now I see why he got slapped. Like, well, maybe. And it drives me nuts. Is this even comedy? To me, it's not. I don't understand why the clips I saw were just dumb. And then I want to talk about Netflix for a moment from an entertainment standpoint. They tend to cancel shows that are very well received and have very high ratings and don't cost near as much to make in favor of giving some washed up comedian millions of dollars for a stupid comedy special. They did this with Dave Chappelle too. Netflix needs to do better about this. And honestly, Chris Rock's not getting another minute of my time. I don't care. The guy who was in all of the Grown Ups movies. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Adam Sandler's brilliant in finger quotes because I don't think he's like this brilliant writer or anything. He's brilliant in the way that he's able to build this comedic empire and still take on serious roles as well. So I'm not necessarily talking shit about Grown Ups, but dude, that's what you have to fall back on. Grown Ups. Like, come on, man. Go find your relevance in some other way and actually be funny instead of falling back on the fact that some dude slapped you at the Oscars. Just my opinion. All right. I'm going to ruffle some feathers right here. I am very sorry, Chris. I know he's going to listen to this, and he's probably going to take offense at it. I watched didn't even get through the whole thing. My wife fell asleep because she actually does watch Mandalorian, and season 3 just dropped. So we started watching the first episode the other night. And I gotta tell you, within the first 3 minutes of that episode, I'm getting real strong Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 vibes in the way that I think this entire season, and this is not spoilers, I'm not spoiling anything. I think this entire season is basically going to be a Grogu, the Baby Yoda, a Grogu toy commercial. Because that's clearly what they were doing. Which is kind of what they did with the Baby Groot character in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. On top of that, there's a couple scenes in there where I'm watching it and I'm going, oh my God, they just took the original Star Wars trilogy, threw a bunch of shit at a wall, and they're like, yeah, that looks good. Let's put that in an episode. Like, can we get, there's so much Star Wars content out there as it is. Why are we just regurgitating and falling back on, like, we got to sell Grogu toys? That's what's happening right now. Same thing with Baby Groot. And I don't even know if I'm going to get through the whole damn episode or the whole damn season. I mean, maybe I'll try it, but good Lord. Jon Favreau, you're better than this. I think you are. Let's do better. All right, Blink-182, if you haven't seen this, Blink-182, that tour that's going to cost you about $5,000 to go see them at a smaller stadium, depending on what city you live in. They had to cancel the first part of their tour. They canceled the entire Mexico leg of the tour because Travis Barker has a broken finger. Now, I don't want to make fun of Travis Barker for having an injury by any means. I will say there was a really funny meme, and I posted it in one of my Discord groups, because there's, oh my gosh, which drummer was it? Def Leppard? There was literally a drummer in the 80s that had one arm, and it's like, you know, the drummer for Def Leppard looking watching as Blink-182 cancels their tour for a broken finger, and it's like, that's a good point. Now, I'm not trying to minimize his injury or anything. It's more of just an FYI. They have had to cancel the first part of the tour. I would also wonder if, and I hate saying this word on the podcast, I wonder if the Kardashian curse is actually a real thing, because they have ruined careers of many before Travis Barker. So let's see what happens here. All right, I want to get into a quick recap and just point out these photos are going to be coming up on both Instagram at SoCalSean as well as Facebook. But I had the privilege of heading down to Garden Amp yesterday. Actually shot six bands. This is why I'm a little bit exhausted today. And I got to be honest with all you Wall fans. I started and I have plantar fasciitis. Just to get tangented here for a sec. So I've had foot problems for many, many years. I used to overtrain when I was doing triathlons. Ended up with, if you're familiar with it, with a heel spur in my foot. And so over the past couple months, and especially since I've started shooting a lot, I was getting a little extra foot pain, and I'm like, oh man, it's plantar fasciitis. I hadn't been in to check, but it was kind of moving toward the front of my foot, the ball of my foot, and my big toe. And I realized, because I've known people that have had it, I've actually given myself turf toe. And not from playing sports or training or getting in shape or anything. It has actually occurred because of shooting at concerts, and I realized what happens is I crouch down, and I hyperextend my right big toe as I'm crouching down on stage a lot of times, and it has gotten to a point where I've had to ice it and everything else, and I'm hoping to get it in a better place here, but and I need to start taping my toe, because I have developed turf toe, again, not because of getting in shape, but because of shooting concerts. So I'm a little bit sore today, because 6 bands down at Garden Grove Amphitheater. Chase Long Beach, Taken Days, 2:30, Pinata Protest. If you haven't seen Pinata Protest, my God, the lead singer plays an accordion, and he's hilarious in a good way, and just it's so much fun watching them. I'd never seen them. Hooray for Our Side, we've talked about them before, and of course Mad Caddies, they are on a reunion tour right now, and this was part of their reunion tour. I had the privilege of shooting all of them. It was my first time seeing Chase Long Beach. I know their music real well. I'm good friends with the lead singer, so I thoroughly enjoyed them. And then Taken Days. You need to check out Taken Days, 3-piece band out of Orange County, and especially if you are of my age, growing up in Southern California, and you listen to a lot of pop punk, SoCal skate punk, going to be right up your alley. They were a little it wasn't bad. They had, people loved it, because I even talked to them after, and they were like, we're a little, because it was all ska, you know, with Taken Days playing. And there was actually in the smaller room, there was a couple not as ska bands that played, but for the main stage, they were the only band that was like clearly not ska. But make sure you check them out, and we'll have photos from all of those bands getting posted. I had a fantastic time. I love shooting shows, and I got to see a lot of friends, got to hang out with a lot of friends. I love Garden Amphitheater. If you've never been down there and you live in SoCal, make sure you catch a concert there. It was freezing, but outside of that, had a blast last night down there in Garden Grove. I will say, though, I know these lemon pepper wings. I'm going to get tangented again for a second. I know they're very popular. See, I'm like a spicy wing or a buffalo wing guy, so I've never really tried these, but I go to order some chicken strips, and they have options, and I didn't say I wanted lemon pepper, so I order it, and then my little buzzer goes off, because they have, the number buzzers, and I go over, and I'm like, to pick it up, I'm like, what's on there? And the woman working behind, she's like, oh, lemon pepper, and I was like, okay, cool. I go back to sit down, I take a bite of one of these things, and it is the saltiest thing I have ever tasted in my entire life. I don't know if all lemon pepper wings taste like this, and this was chicken strips. It was horrible. I could not even get through them. And in fact, I sat down at this table, because there's big picnic tables out there, and there's a father and son sitting there, and the son is eating chicken strips. And I hear his father say something like, oh my gosh, that is so salty. And I turned and I was like, did you get the lemon pepper? And the kid's like, yeah. And I was like, did you mean to? And he's like, yeah. I was like, I didn't mean to. And his dad's like, no, that doesn't taste good at all. And my friend Jen comes over. She's going to listen to this and be like, yep. She comes over and I'm like, do you want to try some of this? But be warned, She takes a bite and she's like, oh my God. She grabs a napkin and she's trying to wipe it off. Like, she's like, I can't even get it off. I'm like, yeah. So I ate like 1 out of 3, gave her 1, and then ate the fries. And I was like, I can't do this. So I don't know if that's what lemon pepper wings taste like, but if that's what they taste like, y'all crazy. Because that did not taste good at all. I had to pick up a little Jack in the Box on the way home because I was starving. All right. But anyway, tons of fun down there at Mad Caddies. Make sure you're following on Instagram for the photos as they all get posted up there. All right, 2 more things, and then we're going to call it a day. Actually, for those of you that are going to punk rock bowling, I am a punk rock bowling rookie. And maybe you've heard of this, even if you haven't gone. The club show tickets went on sale yesterday. I was sitting in front of my computer for an hour before it actually happened. And then you always hear this stuff like, oh my God, get the club show tickets, get the club, blah, 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 blah. So they have a main festival, and then they have shows all around Las Vegas, like in the evening. The festivals during the day, in the evening are these club shows. Barstool Preachers are playing club shows. So I'm like, no way can I miss the Barstool Preachers. I'm almost like required to be there. And I was like, I can probably find a ticket if I need to, because as you all know, I admin for the main fan group there on Facebook. But either way, I was like, I got to get these tickets. So I get in there on this thing. I'm waiting in line. And finally I'm in. I'm talking to my sis Laura, like texting with her. She's like, are you in? I'm like, no, I'm in. She's like, I'm still waiting, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just got overwhelmed. And I was like, all right, I got the Barstool Preachers Club show. And I was like, give me this one and this one. And I like at the end, I was like, all right, what did I just get? It's like, and my buddy John's making fun of me. He's like, rookies. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I just got so overwhelmed. It was my first time. And it sure as hell was. But I'll be at some club shows out there at Punk Rock Bowling. The Ignite one, the Barstool Preachers one is actually Booze and Glory. And the Drowns one, which is actually the Belltones. That's what's so funny, is in very typical fashion, 2 out of 3 of the club shows I got, I'm actually there for the openers. But there's a bunch of club shows for those of you going punk rock bowling. Many are sold out. In fact, I think at least 2 of the 3 that I got are sold out, so I was fortunate enough to get those. Maybe all 3, actually. Yeah, I don't know. All right, last thing I want to point out, and we're going to wrap up episode 100 here. We had a new announcement from Bassists Against Racists. The March design is now available for pre-order. The March design features Donnie Walsh of Grumpster. Now, of course, the artwork is from the uber-talented Zombie Teeth clothing, Zombie Teeth design, Zombie Teeth. Paul's got everything now, Zombie Teeth music videos. He's taken over the world, and I'm so proud to call him a friend. Although I will say, Paul, I know you're going to listen to this, and before I get into the rest of Bassists Against Racists, I know you had an idea for 100 shots during the 100th episode of Common Sense Sundays. I did want to avoid dying today, so I couldn't do that, but I'm always open to your suggestions. Again, the designs by the great Paul Smith. This is masterminded by the amazingly talented Lynn Lee, bassist for Bad Cop, and then moved along by Chaos Merch, run by Gabby Chaos of Venomous Pinks, as well as Team Mom Merch out of Europe. So if you are pre-ordering the design in Europe, you're going to go to Team Mom Merch. If you're pre-ordering it in the United States, you're going to go through Chaos Merch. And I will get this clarified one day. I believe Canada can actually order through either one of those. So if you're in Canada, see, and this isn't to take away from one or the other, see which one the shipping's cheaper. I know Gabby wouldn't be upset if the shipping's cheaper through Team Mom Merch to go to Canada or vice versa. So just keep that in mind. I'm not positive for Canadians which would be the best to order from. But again, in the U.S., Chaos Merch pre-order, those will go get printed in April and then sent out in April. And if you're in Europe, same thing, printed, sent out in April from Team Mom Merch. All right, that's going to do it. I'm exhausted. I got to go eat some tacos. I think that's what we're having for dinner tonight. Looking forward to that. Still going to get that lemon pepper taste on it. Like, I feel like it's just lingering. And I enjoy some sodium and some salt. Like, give me some salty salt and vinegar chips. This was horrible. Oh, like thinking about it for weeks, probably. All right, well, on that note of lemon pepper chicken strips, before we fully wrap it up, don't forget to follow us on the socials, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall, as well as youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. My own personal Instagram account, which is @SoCalSean, SoCalSean, @SoCalSean. And, of course, make sure you bookmark Sean O'Rourke Live. While you're there, check out the exclusive content. And if you have the means to do so, please support us through Patreon by becoming a patron. Or if you don't want to do that, you can support us financially by picking up some Common Sense merch through the merch website, which links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. All right, that's going to do it for episode 100 of Common Sense Sundays on this fine first Sunday in March. We should be back next week, same wall place, same wall time. And until then, remember, wall fans, common sensors, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you're going, especially no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.